on your quest to try to get us to move back to the South because this will give us political power. That's it. That's what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And you talk about, right, is it 5 states?
9.
9 states where we're high 20 to high 30%. Yes. And I appreciate that you've done this in your life. You were 30 years in New York. Yes. You moved to Atlanta.
25 in New York.
20. And how long have you been in Atlanta?
I've been in Atlanta 4 years in January.
And you say this is already happening. This reverse migration.
The reverse migration started to happen probably as soon as the Great Migration ended in 1970. So people started to trickle back. So there's magazine articles that I was reading in the research for the book, people writing this a long time ago, particularly about Atlanta. There was a young, why am I blanking on his name? The senator who died, who's part of the civil rights movement, young John Lewis, not in Congress, talking about people migrating back from up north down south a long time ago. So this has been happening for a very long time. It probably has sped up in recent years and decades.
You have data to talk about, like...
So no one has captured the actual number of reverse migrants. One of my great frustrations is that nobody wants to study this. We have all these amazing universities, including Black universities, including those in places that people are reverse migrants are going to. No one's studying.
So do you believe that the population of Atlanta has changed significantly in the last 10 years in terms of Northeasterners and what are you seeing?
Well, that we know, right? So in 1990, the population, the Black population of Georgia was about 25%. Now it's about 1/3 of the population of Georgia. That's Black people. We do know that the Atlanta metro area is one of the central reverse migration attractors. We know that. We know that over that 30 years, the Black population of Georgia has doubled from about 1.7 million to 3.4 million Black people.
And these folks are mainly coming from?
Well, it is a mixture of people, right? So Atlanta is also a heavy magnet of people in other parts of the South. So it is both people moving into Atlanta from other southern cities, but it is also people, reverse migrants, moving from northern and western cities to Atlanta.
Okay, so I want to talk through this idea. Mm-hmm. I want you to perhaps try to convince me as you've been trying, because this is a quest. This is more than just an intellectual introducing an idea. You want Black people. Do you have a goal? Like, I want 1 million Black people to move south by 2025 or something?
No, I don't think of it that way. I do think of it in the kind of gargantuan generational terms that the Great Migration played out over. It happened over nearly 60 years. Right. So it's not, and there was no one architect of it.
Sure.
People contributed arguments for people to move. Other people resisted this notion altogether and thought it was a problem. I'm a huge friend of Frederick Douglass, who died before the Great Migration, by the way. But when people were moving out of the deeper South into Kansas, part of what they call the Exoders, he was very much against it. He did not want people to move. He probably, in part for the reason that I advocate, which is that he believed that keeping your numbers incredibly high in the states where you had them was probably your best avenue to power.
Does that rely on those who move and live in, let's say, Atlanta, to share a political ideal? Like, if half of us who are there are, let's say, for Obamacare and the other half are against, well, right? That doesn't do anything for us, right?
Right. So I think in that equation, you have to detangle liberalism from Black liberation, right? It's not necessarily the same thing. Black people, what I find is that Black people, one of the core electoral motivators is voting against racism and oppression.
Right.
Right. So there are positive things that people vote for, actually, but they also vote against that. So if they sense that there is racism and oppression in the, in an opposing candidate, voting for the other guy, right?
Sure.
So that motivator to me is the bigger consideration. I am not saying that everybody should be liberal or that you can't be conservative. I'm just saying I want to live in a place that is not governed by white supremacy, and then let Black people have the autonomy to figure out whatever else they want.
Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl Tone Jones. And we are here to talk about Blacks moving south for more concentrated political power. The gentleman that was in the video speaking is Charles Blow. And Charles Blow, from my understanding, is leading the ideas behind the reverse migration, which is Black people moving back south to 9 key southern states to have concentrated power within these 9 southern states to give us greater political power. I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of questions and a lot of things that I thought will make for a good conversation. So I brought this to the table to the gentleman so we can discuss this and really dig deep into the ideas of Black people moving south for the purpose of concentrating our political power. And I think that we need to understand that it's not just Black people moving south just to move south. And because I think that may be different from the original Great Migration with Black people moving north for opportunities versus Black people intentionally moving south in 9 key states for to concentrate our political power. I don't remember what the 9 states was, but I believe it was Georgia, Florida, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, maybe Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, or something like that. Those may be the states that, so we can kind of look at that Bible, but I'm sure we can look at the states in the Bible Belt area. But starting with you, Pat, looking at the clip and just your overall ideas and what you know about the original Great Migration, but what do you think about this idea of Black people moving back south for greater political power?
It's funny because we were having this conversation with Professor a few years ago when PC was talking about moving to the south.
Yeah. He was talking about moving south with the initiatives with the people.
Right. I wasn't gonna say all that, Joe. Like, come on, bro. But I mean, anyway,
that's what it's one of the states in this though. But I mean, hey man, but people need to be better people.
Well, that part is also true. I think it's one of those ideas that sound good until you really start to think about it. And then the more you think about it, the less good it sounds. I've been in the South all my life. I understand Southern people in the way that Northern people don't seem to understand. And I think like when we had these conversations with PC, is one of the things I was alluding to was during the Great Migration, all of the Black people that didn't have a certain level of apathy, that had some get up and go about them, some we gonna do something about them, they left. That's the Great Migration. So what does that tell you about everybody that stayed? So this idea that, and because we hear this idea all the time, especially from Northerners, I believe this brother's from New York.
Yeah.
He's been in Atlanta for 4 years. Let's be real. Black people are moving to major metropolises. They're not moving, and it's not for political power. It's because in major cities, you get the illusion of freedom. Especially in the Bible Belt, the major cities oftentimes seem to run differently than the red states that encompass them. And so there's that. We talking about Atlanta. A lot of people say Atlanta ain't even the real South just because it's a major city. It don't feel like the
Like
real it. Yeah, it feel like Atlanta. It feel like a major metropolis. Same with being here in Charlotte. It's South, but it don't feel like the rural South.
you need to come to here. You need to come to Tallahassee.
Yeah, so but then even to that, I think the idea of terming it the reverse migration, I think even that is a bit disingenuous. Because from 1970 to 2010, because I started looking this stuff up, so I don't know if there are new numbers for 2020, but I started looking this stuff up back when we were having these conversations with PC because I got curious about it. And there's been, I want to say, a less than 5% increase in people moving from the north to the south. And that's from 1970 to 2010. Now, if you recall, the Great Migration was from what, 1910 to roughly 1965, roughly roundabout.
Yeah.
And that was from 90% of people living in the South to about 50% of black folk living in the South.
Right.
So
Right.
from there, we've gone to roughly about 50% of black people living in the South in the 1970s to roughly 55% of black people living in the South now.
Right. It's 50. It's exactly 56% of black people live in the South right now.
Over that duration, that's not a reverse migration. It is something, but it ain't what we're labeling it as.
I think, and you might be alluding to when he was talking about it's a trickle effect starting to happen.
Yeah, but it like when you say a reverse migration, because I'm also alluding to the fact that he said he kind of tried to compare time frames when he said the Great Migration didn't happen all at once. The
Right.
Great Migration happened a lot faster than what's happening now. A lot faster. But beyond that, there's also the assumption. I also like the idea that black folk vote against something. I agree with him on that. Black people don't vote for anything. We vote against things.
Put a pin in that.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things I want to come back to. Because I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw this, my thoughts were codes of conduct, voting power, and real concentrated power. Right? How do we really achieve those things, and how important all those three things in him or achieving the goal of that idea he has, that goal that he has is black people moving south, being able to concentrate and attain true political power.
I just want to, so I'm gonna land my plane after I make these quick points. One, you need to address why black people stop participating politically. The Great Compromise of 1877 needs to be talked about and understood with regards to why black people stop participating politically. Because if you're saying we're going to move south to create a political power base, you need to understand why we aren't participating politically now and whether or not those conditions still exist. Second, there needs to be an understanding of the political process. Like, we need to talk about, do we really need a base that is huge, or I stand on the percentage saying we just need to control the margins, understand the margins and control the margins. You don't need 50% of the population. If the population is split, all you need is 2 or 3%.
So, well, okay, I'm at work, and one of our new front desk workers is a young Jewish guy, real cool guy, real Jewish guy. But and it might have been this video I was watching. It might have been another video, but it was talking about black people having political power and black people using our voting power and going out and getting votes, and then also how the Democrats or the Republicans, but mostly the Democrats, come for us and they campaign to us. So I asked him, said, "You're a Jewish man. You've been Jewish your whole life. Explain to me how either the Republicans or Democrats campaign to Jewish people for votes." He laughed. What? We campaigned to them. I said, say it again. He said, we don't wait for them to campaign to us. We campaign to them. We tell them what we want.
And again, we go back to understanding the political process, understanding what's necessary, participation, controlling the margins. I just think that there's a lot that's missing. And if he lives in Atlanta, he should also understand, bro, you live in a black city where black people have no control.
Hey. We getting there.
So,
We gonna get there. We gonna get there.
with that, I'll wrap up.
Good start. Yeah. IPC. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on the video? What are your thoughts on black people moving south? This Charles Blow, is he making sense? Is he not making sense? What's going through your mind?
I just think when I hear black people talking about voting and amassing like a critical population or critical center, it just takes me to the fact that black people really don't understand the civic process here in America.
Yeah.
Because, and you both alluded to it in the last like 30 seconds for what y'all were talking about. In politics, voting is the least important part of the process. And one of the things that, one of the things I used to teach is I used to show my students pictures of high rises owned by banks. And I would ask them, I say, how many floors you think are dedicated to the money? And what do you think the other floors of the bank are dedicated to? And we would get into the discussions to identify how much of the bank is dedicated to legislation, to lobbies, to processing laws. That laws are literally made and created by lobbies and put on the desk people who have special interests. They're literally put in front of the politician. And they said, if you sign this, we will endorse you. We will sponsor your political campaign. And when you try to explain that to black people, the first thing they say, well, our ancestors died, so you had the right to vote. Which is every time I hear that, I wish I was in arm's reach to that person to, show them what else our ancestors died for.
Man, our ancestors died for a lot of stuff we refuse to do. So shut that up.
Right. So, so one of the things that just hearing this particular thing is he's saying that people need to do the research. Motherfucker, why don't you do some research?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? in terms of just trying to lead something you've done you put no sweat equity into, and you want people to just march down there on you didn't even take time out to look into how you can make that beneficial, because you can. You can. When we were talking about it, and I had took a trip, I was invited to speak at a program in 2016. That's when I first got my first gaze at the Deep South. And one of the things that the people down there were talking about were, well, we're just going to keep electing people until they until they give us what we want. And I said to them, well, you're 90% of the population of the city, of the town that we were in. Why don't you create your politician? Why don't you, yeah, why don't you create your politician born and raised here who are dedicated, who are loyal to the people? You can shape and mold your own politician right here, right out of the mud. Why are you going to bring somebody else in here? And it took me to the fact that when you go to places in the southern states, and the RNA tried it, right? The Republic of New Africa tried it back in 1969, where they tried to bring a movement I believe it was 5 states at the time. South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, right? So they may have added the other states by then. Why the hell would you try Florida? I have no fucking idea why you try that in Florida or Texas. But the problem you run into is the mindset of the people. the people in the South, what I've learned, are perfectly fine with white leadership, and perfectly fine with, and there's no disrespect to my brothers and sisters in the South, but it like the first thing you have to do is tear from the mindset of the people that live there.
Man, we from the South. You telling the truth.
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because I remember having these conversations back then, and y'all were both telling me, "Man, are you sure about this?"
I remember. I remember now because as you start talking, I remember. Oh yeah, these the conversation we were trying to. We were so because we were saying, and for the content for the viewers, we wasn't telling him that black people can't move south and we can't concentrate power, but we were saying in a manner that we think is just going to happen just because we move south. That's not going to happen because look at how many black people are in the South now, and we don't have power now.
Well, and the like to, because like the thing was, and I think this dude is still like he ain't got. I don't think he has friends that have been Southerners their whole lives. That's really breaking it down for him because he said he only been in Atlanta for 4 years. So you really don't even know when you live up north in the concrete jungle and the hot boxes and everybody stacked on top of each other.
We spread out down here.
You come down south, you see all this land and all this opportunity, and you start having all these ideas and hopes and dreams.
Hold up, Colored. Hold up. I don't know where you think you're from, Colored, but you're in Florida now, Colored.
Right.
We don't like that. It's Ireland, okay?
It takes somebody that grew up here that can see all the invisible walls to be able to say, hold up, you a bird. And that's glass over there. You don't see it. I'm trying to stop you from flying into it. You keep flying that way, you're going to smash your head in.
So
that's what we're dealing with.
Go ahead, Pete. Finish. My bad.
So what they really, so what these guys, both these brothers told me is, you're coming down here with a northern state of mind.
Yes.
You know, basically called me a Yankee.
Yes.
Which, when you're from Philly, that's kind of offensive, but I understand. But
that's crazy.
The more I came, like, because I actually started to see like more of it, second and third time, and you know how, and I'm not even gonna, talk about the affiliation, but just seeing that mindset of and I can recall because we had some people who I actually met Professor Small there, and the fact that he had some ideas, and those ideas were tossed out, the stubbornness, that who you out is basically was one of those, you outsiders really don't know what goes on down here. And this is coming from a man that's been doing this for 70 years, 50, 60 years. You know what I'm saying? Who's traveled the globe and understands how movements are generated. It's trying to get people to really understand that first and foremost, as our elder Neely Fuller stated, you can't put black people around each other until black people learn to get along. And to just up and move a group of disgruntled people who don't have a culture of understanding, a culture of compassion, a culture of loving one another. I mean, if you want to talk about some of the major distractions we've seen recently, it's sort of like black on black crime, and we sort of like love it. We can't get enough of it. And we spend more time dealing with trying to out black people or trying to call black people out than we do at understanding how we need to formulate against our natural enemies. Right. So to bring black people down there and to say that I want to create a place free from white supremacy, you bringing a bunch of black white supremacists to the fucking South.
But also, he made me think about the Independence Day Project, because I believe that if you merge the ideas, we can get something, but both ideas have to be truly flushed out by both sides and understand what's going on. Like the information given in the Independence Day Project, plus his idea of black people moving south. Because to be honest, though, well, I'm sorry, will you finish? If you would, my bad.
No, go on, bro.
Because my initial idea, my initial thought when I was looking at this, because I saw a great deal of this video or this interview, because I wanted to make sure I have a good idea of what he was talking about. But my initial thought was, well, we wouldn't have to move anywhere if we were on code.
Exactly.
And also, if we were on code, moving would make this idea great if we were on code. But because we're not on code, moving black people to the South will just be moving black people to the South. And like both of you already said, we already have examples of predominantly black areas, towns, states, and stuff that black people don't have real power. The county next over, Gaston County, is Florida's only all black county. It's like 80 to 85, 90% black. The rest is Hispanic. I think it's more Hispanic and then white. The black people don't really have the power in that. Like the white people really, like the black people are in positions, but the white people really run Gaston County because they got the old money.
Bro, we have counties like that, townships like that all over. I mean, Ferguson, Missouri is identified as a suburb, but it's a suburb with no resources. So it's just a dumping site for people who suffer from shrinkage gentrification of St. Louis. We have Chester, PA, which is right outside of Philadelphia. They just lost their certification because of how badly run that black township is run. That black city is run. They just lost their accreditation.
Yeah.
You know, as an actual city. You know, we have all of these different places. I mean, you can go back to the 90s where Compton lost, and there was a city with 100,000 black people in it, and they lost accreditation for their city.
What's that city or the county we was looking at years ago with the judiciary with all black women, and they were still locking up all the black people?
Oh, that was in Georgia.
Yeah, it was in Georgia.
It was in Georgia.
The judiciary, the all black people run the judiciary system, but most of the people still getting locked up as black people.
Yeah, because we didn't understand Missandei.
Bang.
But you know, so we have places where black people are highly populated. Mississippi has 50. I believe it has 50 counties, 50 different towns in Mississippi, where you have a black majority population, if I'm not mistaken. Anytime, so we were looking to move and incorporate cities and take them over, and this is when we were all woke in our black, nationalist stance, and we were going to go take over these towns and build from the bottom up. But you already have these towns, and here's the thing: you move downtown, you move down south, you have to deal with the counterculture that says we don't want you just coming down here telling us what to do where we live at. And rightly so, in some instances, it's like you don't get because you just become what the elder Neely Fuller said. You just take over what the white man did. You become the new oppressor when you come down and just take over a spot with somebody else. You become the new colonizer.
Bro, and everybody, do people really realize that the South is comprised of a lot of small cities? Yeah. Atlanta is the biggest it's the largest concentration of black people in the state of Georgia. So from my understanding, Texas, Florida, and Georgia, in that order, are the three southern states that have the largest black population. But I live in Tallahassee, Florida. At our height, we'll have 300,000. We're a mid-sized city. We're a big city compared to a lot of these other cities. In the Florida Panhandle, there is Pensacola all the way on the west. There's Tallahassee in the middle, and there's Jacksonville all over on the east. In between that, it's Trump country. We call it Trump country because these are the smaller towns where Mr. Hickman and Bubba and them run stuff, right? And then going down southern Florida or going to the central Florida part. Remember, Central Florida is where the people who call themselves crackers live. That's where cracker culture lives. And this is not something I'm making up. These are Central Florida people who call themselves crackers. They call it cracker culture. These are the people who subscribe to being crackers and rednecks. They live in Central Florida. Hey,
Yeah, that's your Florida man. He live in Central Florida.
let Orlando fool you. Don't let Tampa and Orlando fool you. That's
Tampa is right there. Isn't that where Trayvon Martin got murked?
Florida man, like Pat said, Florida man is originally from Central Florida. Then you go down south, and South Florida is South Florida. You're gonna get everybody down there. And then you got Miami, which is its own country. And you better know the rules of Miami. But guess what? The racism and the stuff that happens in like Central Florida and South Florida, Miami, those are not your traditional white people. Those are the original white people who got here in the beginning, who spoke Spanish, because they're the Hispanic and Latino groups who don't like black people. They've concentrated their powers, but they concentrated their powers under codes of conduct. Why do we can't leave that part out? We cannot do anything in a positive manner to build real power without a code of conduct. What are we uniting under?
You know, the funny thing about what you just said is Dr. Claude Anderson said about 10 years ago, if somebody asked who's buying your book, he said mostly Latinos, and he was talking about how they actually used his book to reformulate policy down in Miami. And now you got the little Havanas, the little Cubas, and all this other stuff, places where you don't even see English street signs. And so when you think about that, and you think about the ignorance of us, right? We look at each other like F that N-word. I'm trying to, cover some of this up. F that N-word. He can't tell me anything. We think that because we all have access to platforms like this, that my opinion is just as important as your facts, and because of all those things, you can't assemble a group of purposefully ignorant people who are purposefully ignorant, who have microaggressions that are exposed at the slightest, breeze and hostility that we deal with one another. You can't you're trying to take, and we go back to something Malcolm said. You can't organize a sleeping people. Well, black people are comatose. You got to literally pull black people out of the meat locker.
Past that melatonin.
Right. We are done in regards to the mindset and concept of working together. We look at the concept of even building black families. That's the first political base. We don't even want to talk about doing that. You talk about places where, let's go to places where you have black upward mobility, social mobility. Look at what's going on in PG County, up in Maryland, the DMV. Look at all the violence and crime in those areas where you have black people who actually supposedly are of some means. Moving down south is not going to change our predicament because, and as Gil Scott Heron once said, the revolution will not be televised. And so many people were saying, well, what does that mean? Well, what does it mean? I'm a little simpler than that. I just think I'm not the smartest guy. I just looked up, what did Gil Scott Heron mean? He actually had a video where he explained what he meant. In the revolution, it wasn't about it's going to happen on the internet or it's going to happen on the radio. He said the revolution starts up here. It takes place in the mind. And because we're not at that place where the revolution is taking place in our mind because we're calcified in our pineal glands and all that other stuff, we are not able to even see. Fuck moving down now. You got people on their blocks that like the Hatfields and McCoys.
Man, look, okay, let's put it on the table. Because I'm even dealing with it now as an up-and-coming YouTuber. My channel is growing, my information is getting out. So time to time, people will reach out to me about collaborating. And let's just be real. Just because we all look black doesn't mean we all are on the same page of our end goal and everything. And because some, you know, when people are approaching you about building, especially for black folk, we have to understand our history and the experiences that we've gone through. A lot of us have experienced a lot of black people who are just talk, or black people who really at the end of it, it's about the look and it's not about that real action and real change at the end. I mean, not to get too far into it, but you know, your PC, you know, some of your experience of, you know, dealing with folk trying to move south, you know, stuff went south. But I think it went south literally and figuratively. I think we need to be honest about ourselves. If you are a person that doesn't have integrity, like seriously, if you're a black person who does not have integrity, stop reaching out. And I'm not saying anybody that reached out to me like that. I want to put that out. I'm not insinuating anybody who reached out to me. I'm just saying in general, because us three have been linked together for at least 10 years. We've all been doing this collectively or individually at least 20 years. We've all been doing this. If you have no integrity, stop reaching out to people who do have integrity, because you know your ultimate goal is to tear down everything that's going on.
Well, I think the integrity piece, if I could slide in here, is interesting too, because I don't think, and I'm not questioning the brother's character or anything like that. I don't know the dude.
No, and this has nothing to do with Charles Blow. This had nothing to do with
what I'm fixing to say does.
Just black folk out there. We don't know.
No, what I'm fixing to say does.
Okay.
When he said nobody's studying this,
that's not true.
People have studied this. The first bit of information I found about a reverse migration was dated in the 90s. And I remember in the early 2000s, there being a book about it. I can't remember the name of the book right now. I was trying to Google it actually while the clip was playing. I couldn't find it. But even on the internet right now, you can find articles and things of that nature. Brookings Institute research from 10 years ago looking at this. I think this is an idea that he's latched onto and he's presenting, and he's not ready to present it, which to me showcases a bit of a lack of integrity, that he's not upfront about that. So, and I say that because again, like we know about the reversal of the migration trends. I won't say it's a reversal of the Great Migration, but it's a stoppage and a new direction of the migration trends. We also know what's causing it. The South is becoming, I mean, we talk about why black people left to begin with. They left for opportunity. The ones that could and had, I know it's a lot more nuanced than that. But the grand scheme of things, they left for opportunity. But their family and a lot of their other more stubborn or less risk-averse members of their family stayed. The core of their family. So now as the South becomes developed and these opportunities arise through the development of these large cities, black people continue to aggregate in large cities. A lot of these people are doing, what they're doing is they're moving home. They're going back because now they have an opportunity and it's a chance for a family reunion, and they see an opportunity for them to live a certain lifestyle. And it's evident in the places that they're moving to that they're not serious about creating any real change. They're not moving to places where you could actually create change by going there. They're moving to major cities.
Well, yeah, because that's another thing I was thinking about too, is the South is more than Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, Miami, New
And
Orleans.
hold on, Joe. Hold on, real quick. Let me say this because you said that it triggered me. I know a lot of people ain't gonna like this. Fuck that Mason-Dixon line shit. Maryland ain't South. God damn it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
I said what I said.
It's not.
Baltimore ain't
It's not the
South.
DC ain't the
All
South.
right?
Virginia ain't the
I
South.
understand they got Southern swang when they talk and all that other shit.
The Northerners.
Is it right? But it ain't like so. Even to that, I'm like a lot of these places they be like black people are relocating to the South. Baltimore game, but Baltimore ain't fucking South. All right, that I know y'all gonna hate me for it, especially you Northerners and especially you people from Maryland and DC and all of that.
We don't look
God
at y'all.
damn it, it ain't the South.
We don't look at y'all.
Well, hold up though. 'Cause
Go ahead, PC. Bring it, reel us in.
no. 'Cause, no, I'm actually like I'm actually riding with you on this. Because I used to fuck with y'all all the time. People don't know that. That's what the Mason Dixon shit come from. But from Boston to DC is considered the Northeast corridor, based on just traveling through I-95. So if you look at it from that perspective, I don't think they really identify with being Southern. More so than they identify reasonably with being part of the Northeast section of the country. But to drive the point home of what you're saying, yeah, that's propaganda. And it's useful propaganda if you can convince people that it works. Because I know, and listen, are there benefits to moving down south? Hell yeah. There are benefits. When I was in, we were on a strip, the town strip, and it was majority black-owned businesses. Now they weren't up and running, but it was something that foundationally you can build, right? And so I, as a visionary, the same way I saw, the Independence Day Project, and I always say we built the Independence Day Project because it wasn't a solo act, even in the concept and the ideas behind it. But in seeing what could be foundationally, if it got a little, if we did a little spit shine and then polished it up a little bit, it could be the foundation of something. And I liked it for the topography. The fact that you can do things in small towns down there pretty much in isolation. You can build quietly and discreetly. But the problem is, once again, is that and the fact that the cost of living is moderately better than anything up here in the north in their major cities.
Right. But a factor to that though is the concentration of people.
Right. And you take a group of people and you don't have any sort of way of employing those people. I know a lot of people right now work digitally and online, but that still doesn't make up for the majority of jobs in the economy. Especially if you move somewhere where you need to rebuild. I mean, has he not seen some of the horror stories in some of the small towns in Alabama and Louisiana where they're having issues with septic tanks running over, sewage running in the streets and flowing into people's homes because the township is too poor to actually have the proper infrastructure? Yeah. There's a lot of things that are not taken into consideration. I mean, I like black people. We need to start with flying off of the seat of our pants because we do this shit with businesses too. We don't do any research, background checks. We don't look at the trends, nothing. We just say, I'm gonna open up a chicken and donut spot on this corner. Well, fam, it's nothing bringing traffic this way. How are you going to advertise? How are you going to get people out here? But look at the trends. People are modifying their diets right now. They're no longer eating fried food. They're no longer eating, food with high sugar content. What are you going to do? Man, it's going to be great because, and if you're just a hater, you know what I mean? And if you're going to hate, just fucking say that then. I'm like, okay then, man, open up your shit. And then 6 months later, My business
Bro.
died because you Negroes don't support anything.
Right, right,
Like
right.
whatever.
That's the thing though, because like I said, one of my first original thoughts is if we're not codified, this is going to fall apart. And what it's going to do is concentrate so many black people in one area that it makes it easier for us to be whatever that happened to us can happen to us because you were concentrated in one area with no means of truly protecting ourselves. But also, don't look at once again, stop looking at the South like it's comprised of a bunch of big cities. Hell, America's not even made like that. The South ain't, and we spread out.
Bruh, Pennsylvania ain't. Outside of Philly, the rest of the state is called Pennsylvania.
So
No state, no place in America ain't like that.
So when you're talking about moving 40 million people to the South, and particularly 9 states, we would have to be concentrated or spread out throughout these states. But what's the overall plan for us once we get there? Because now
Atlanta is the plan, Joe.
Atlanta
or DC. Those are Chocolate City 1 and 2.
So
anytime black people think about this, that's the plan.
So crime gonna go up.
Absolutely.
Well, because I mean, and people can get mad at me for saying that, but I'm not making Negroes do that, right? But
no, we know what's making is what PC said, like, and what you said in terms of like
economics play a part,
right? How are you going to employ these people? How are you going to provide for these people? What are you going?
Here in Tallahassee, they're trying to create between 1,000 and 3,000 different jobs. So actually, Tallahassee is one of the top 5 to top 10 tech cities in the world. Don't sleep on my city. We're one of the top 5 to top 10 tech cities in the world. 1,000 to 3,000 new jobs are going to be created over the next 5 years through our tech hubs because we have that mag lab here. Jobs are being created in Tallahassee. Tallahassee is expanding, but guess what color people are behind that?
I was just finna say, not for Negroes.
No, because Negroes are involved in the process, but Negroes are not the foundation of the process.
Negroes are involved in building the buildings and keeping them clean.
Well, that too, but they got slick. Negroes are part of the recruiting process to recruit other Negroes in to help grow their thing. But we're still not able to create jobs for ourselves. You have to create jobs. But going back to what we put a pin in, voting power, political involvement, the political process, understanding these things. But we're going to go into this with no code of conduct, which is half-assed. You can't do that. And so, because the overall goal he was talking about to build political power, to have that involvement that we need in the political process to get outcomes. So these black people concentrated in these 9 states, are we talking like political power on a local level, on a national level?
We don't even know where in the South we talking about.
Right, because you move a bunch of black people into Houston, which is a predominantly Latino and white city. You're still not going to have any political power to move.
But that's already happened. That's already happened.
So when you talk about creating a political mass of people, you have to look at things, and this is why too many. I don't know the brother. I know he's a good actor. I've seen him in movies and stuff.
Oh, he's an actor. I didn't even know that.
I don't know.
Brother's an actor. And I get it, but too many times like I said, we move to based on our feelings and emotions. He probably was walking around one day and was like, damn, this is great. We could do this shit everywhere without thinking about the, things that nation builders have to think about. Like you said, Joe, security. You move to the South. Maybe you need to do some history about what happened 100 years ago when black people had towns in the South. All right. And what happened when those towns started flourishing in the South next to rundown white towns in the South. Because don't think it won't happen again. And the government was complicit in all of the towns that got burned down, flooded, had roads built around it, things of that nature. And black people aren't loyal enough to black people to actually to stand through all the tough times that'll come. We see it everywhere else. And like we just don't, like you said, we're not on code. We don't have a code of conduct. We don't even have a culture of riding with each other, specifically in the last 70 years.
So he's a writer for the New York Times.
I've seen him on documentaries. That's right. That's
Yeah,
what I've seen.
yeah.
So
He's from Gibbsland, Louisiana, and he went to Grambling for college. So you should understand. You should have a better understanding of the South. You from the
No, he
South?
shouldn't. No, he shouldn't.
spent 25 years in New York.
Yeah, no, he should.
And we're harping on that, but you have to understand the mindset of a certain type of people who've been beat down for so long in the South. It's a bit different. That we're not like some of that slow stereotype applies to some. Doesn't apply to all. Doesn't apply to most, but it applies to some. But like you said, the South is the South for a reason. It's not by happenstance. It's the South. The South is the South for a reason. Well, let's look at Atlanta, Houston, Dallas, New Orleans, Miami, Jacksonville, Charlotte. How much real power do Black people really have in these areas? Because these are metro areas in the South where you have large concentrations of Black people. So what type of real power do we already have in these places? Because that's one of the thoughts I had. Well, what examples do we have of Black people concentrated in a city, in any city in the United States where Black people have real political power and really control everything that goes on in the city? And white people don't really have control like that. They got to come through the Black people to get real control. Like, what example do we have?
Well, I think one of the challenges that we face is that in most of these major cities in the South that Black people congregate in, those cities tend to be in a battle with the state, a losing battle with the state, where the city is trying to do one thing and the state is like, nah, we're not doing that. So even then, like if you're talking about power, you have to define the definition of it and the limitations of it. But like because we was having this conversation last night, Joe, about Shannon Sharp and how people think that because he talked the way he talked.
He's slow. Yeah.
And Shannon Sharp's not a dumb person
at all.
Most of the people in the South are not dumb people, but the thinking is different. And here's the thinking isn't even taught in the universities that are positioned in the South. So and that's why a lot of the stereotypes persist in the South, especially with regards to the interactions with the intellectuals. You could be born and raised in the South, go to a college in your hometown and become alienated in your hometown for going to that college. But nobody's thinking about those types of structures and cultural changes and conflicts and things of that nature. Like
a lot of things have to be put in place because I would love for Black people to be able to have more power and be able to concentrate ourselves. And I don't think that he has an idea that we can throw away. I just think the idea has to be thought about more and refined more. And it has to really be everything. All the factors have to be taken into account and the barriers have to be removed. Because like you're talking about, in the South, we have to deal with a mindset and a lack of forward movement. In the North, we have to deal with a mindset and a lack of forward movement, but a little more movement than maybe the South, but still a lack of movement. Then you got to bring these two people together, and these people got to get along, and Black people ain't been getting along. But you're doing all of this, and you haven't united people under a code of conduct. We can't.
I'll say it, Joe, since you being nice.
What I'm being
throw
nice
the idea away. It's trash.
I don't think we could. I really don't believe you have to throw this away. If it ain't codified, it ain't gonna work though.
Then throw it away.
That's all I'm saying. Though. It has to be codified.
Any idea that's brought up that doesn't address the cultural issues and create some sort of code for Black folk, we not there. Throw it away.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not gonna say throw it away. But
I'm gonna say throw it away.
if you ain't gonna do it right, it ain't gonna work.
Wouldn't throw it away. We ain't got time for the joke. We have black men and black women are in a position where we don't even really want to touch private parts no more.
But you can't. So remember though, we got to change this first. So we don't change this first. Every idea we get, we gonna throw away. Every idea we get, we
exactly. Which
so
is why they all need to be thrown away.
Right.
We
so
ain't changing this.
Put them shits on the shelf.
No,
and get this
ain't
right.
no shelf, Joe. Where the shelf at? Where the shelf?
If not, we gonna throw away everything that come across.
No, Joe.
God damn it.
Joseph,
No,
answer my question. Where the hell is the shelf?
the shelf is right here on the
The
wall.
shelf is in your house.
Yeah, it's on the wall.
How the hell? What good that do for PC and all the way up there in Philly?
I can mail it to his ass. All right.
Go ahead.
And portable shelves all over the place. I do have a couple shelves in here, but we keep trying to get to the end, and I'm not talking about us. I'm just talking about collective.
Yeah,
and my apologies to the brother for seeing his act. I know I've seen him on a lot of documentaries, so my apologies to them anyway, but yeah, we try to get to the end. It's like we don't want to actually go through the process of the real investment because we don't see this being a multi-generational task that needs to be adhered to. We want this shit over with so we can get back to living our best life.
Get back.
And this is why we can't even, like, our attention span is shot, in regards to paying attention, staying the task, and then our loyalty. When you think about black people and loyalty, you got to really ask ourselves, has there ever really been a time in this country since the inception that we've been loyal to each other? I mean, you look at all the slave revolts and the ones that didn't happen because black people were snitching on each other. Who were they loyal to? They weren't loyal to each other. They were loyal to their slave master. And so when you think about, and we love and Black History Month is coming, so we love to bring up the, Harriet Tubman, and she was a real one. But it was such a minute number of black people who decided, Africans who decided, take her up on her offer to go to the Underground Railroad, and the ones who chose to go south with the likes of John Horse and those members of the Seminole tribe, black African warriors that have been mislabeled as Native American. But we'll get to another conversation. Anyway, but the majority stayed on those plantations. The majority, even after 1863, when the Civil War was declared won by the North, and there were some people who chose to stay on those plantations as sharecroppers, and to indulge in another form of slavery, voluntarily. And this ain't taking shots at the South, but we got to be real. We have to have hard conversation. And we can take our jabs at the North on another occasion because there are plenty of things we could talk about in terms of self-sabotage that have taken place up here.
We ain't getting nothing from the North either.
Right. So you're taking a bunch of people from the North that had access to each other in populated places that did not build shit up here. And if white folk decide to shut down all the places we work now, we'd be literally dealing with the Hunger Games / purge type situations in our cities tonight. We have to really think about the process of how this actually all works. The minute process, the cog and shit that goes on behind the clock while we're watching the hands turn. And we have to figure out those things. Chicago and Detroit were considered two destination places. for black people in the late 60s, early 70s, prior to the riots in the bloody summer of 1968. All white folk did was say, we're going to take these automotive power plants,
Ship them overseas.
ship them overseas, and then we're going to replace it with the heroin that was flown in from the Golden Triangle out there in Southeast Asia. And we're going to simultaneously replace your means of income with this and debilitate your entire community with that. And it was done. And then you have war zones. All these gangs that were formed, originally formed to protect black people from police brutality. But they got perverted, they got infiltrated, and then they became the biggest menaces and colonizers of the community. So, unless you want to create another one of those, then I think, and the fact that the brother's an investigative reporter speaks volumes about the fact that he didn't investigate this shit. Maybe he needs to check out the documentary.
What's the name of it? What's the name of it?
Documentary?
The
He needs to check
documentary.
out?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well, he first needs to check out the Independence Day Project. He
that's
needs
what
to
I'm
check
talking
that
about.
out,
That's what I'm talking
Right.
about. That's the only documentary I'm talking about.
right? But there's another one too. He needs to check out
All
Mouse
right.
Who?
Mouse Utopia. He needs to check out the Mouse Utopia documentary.
Well,
see what
hold on, PC.
Yes, sir.
Before he check that out, we need you to recreate it.
Mouse Utopia?
Yeah,
Or-
we
or
need,
Independence
you
Day
need to
Project.
check out PC's version of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but also I do want to make sure that we're thinking about what we're doing and really looking at this, because Florida is the second most populated state in the South with black people. But look at how Ron DeSantis has the state and black people, and they're all anything that's not white conservative is in the chokehold right now. With the state that has the second largest black population in the South. So Texas has the largest black population in the South. I'm not sure who the governor of Texas is, but we know the anybody under the DEI is in the chokehold. So if you're not white conservative in Florida and in Texas, you're in the chokehold. Outside of Atlanta and Georgia, you're in the chokehold. So I just named you the three states that had the largest black populations in the
Inside
South.
of Atlanta.
But just bigger picture. Because yes,
I get
yeah,
you.
we already know they ain't got no power in Atlanta. We ain't got this. But just statewide, just getting people to think about statewide. Like we have all these black people in these three states, and we have no power in these three states. So you can't just look at it simply as we need to move. We have to be a different type of people. We have to evolve as a people. We have to evolve into a united people before we move.
Well, and if I may, I think I agree with everything you said, PC. I'm gonna push back on one point. You said that we're loyal to the slave master. Black people don't deserve that much credit. Black people are loyal to themselves as individuals. And because if we were loyal to the slave master, then we could have a conversation where we could at least talk about us being loyal to something beyond ourselves. There's hope there. The loyalty was just misplaced. I don't even think we're not even there yet where we can have loyalty to anything as a culture filled with individuals. I think the majority of black individuals you bump into are loyal 100% to themselves, even when it seems like they're loyal to somebody else. That's not the case. You look at the street dude who say, I ain't no snitch, and everybody's like, he loyal. No, he's thinking about what's going to happen to him if he tells.
That's true.
So the slaves that was snitching, they was thinking about what would happen to them
They
if
were,
they got caught or if something happened or
they
what,
were thinking about their
and what
individual
reward
freedom.
they would get if
Yep.
they I think that's the biggest, that's why none of this shit works, because at its core, all of those black people moving down to the south are not thinking about what they can do for all of the other black people. They thinking about what they can get out of it. If I move down to the south, everything y'all just said, cost of living is low, job prospects is up. All them dumb niggas down there, they can't even read and write. So I'm gonna be able to at least get a job teaching the little children. Like all of the, oh shit, we on YouTube. My fault, Joe.
I write down the timestamp.
I slipped right into like conversation mode, like we on the phone or some shit.
I wrote down the timestamp. Edit at this point.
But and I think that's where like I say we gotta throw all these ideas until we get to a place where we can understand that we is bigger than me. It's none of this shit
Just
is
saying.
gonna work.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it. That was my original thought when I first saw this interview. Is I hear you. I really do hear you.
Here we go.
However, if 1, 2, and 3, because in order to get to Z, you got to hit A, B, and C. So if you don't hit A, B, and C, if black people, if we don't change the way we think, we don't change the way we behave, we don't change the way we see ourselves, we don't change the way we see the world, and if ultimately we don't unite under a code of conduct, moving to the South is not going to do but put a bunch of black people in one space and make us a lot more vulnerable than we are, and put us on top of each other and raise the cost of living and take more resources out of our mouths, because right now we're already still dependent, so we're not producing anything. So
But PC agreed with me that we need to throw the idea out. So you
I don't care. I stand by myself. I stand by myself. We're gonna refine this idea first, and then we're gonna do it. I stand by myself.
So there's another aspect of this too, because black people are great chameleons and pretending to be somebody we're not, and to go along to get along, as you said, Pat, and I acknowledge the correction. You're right. That loyalty is very selfish indeed. It's pathological at this point, and there's going to have to be a partnership with the white folk that are currently in charge, and see, because as we mentioned, I mean, you look at Jackson, Mississippi, and what they just went through when their water purification, site went down, and the state determined that the purification plant that favored the white part of the community was the one that was going to get fixed, and that's exactly what happened. So you think about, and this even goes back 100 and something years ago, the Killers of the Flowers Moon.
I got to see that.
Yeah, and so you think about how these Native Americans who had property in Oklahoma and where it was oil country at that particular time. This is literally right after the Tulsa race riot, right? Well, Tulsa massacre, and how white men devised a plan, kill off to marry all of the women, kill off all the men, marry all the women, and then kill the women to seize control of property and land, because they thought well out past, just this whole glorious moment of us all, singing Kumbaya and having one big ass family reunion. We don't think far enough into the future to understand how devious, our enemy truly is, and what stakes and how much they really hate us. You know what I'm saying? Collectively, individually, but there's a hatred there that is deep-seated, like generational. This hatred goes back to those days of the Civil War, prior to the antebellum era in the South prior to the Civil War, and what they would do to destroy any access. You got to remember, for him, for what the brother's talking about, it's about building up a black economy. It's about creating powerful black people. For them, they will burn this country to the ground before they cede any power to black people. And because black people are so ignorant and so childish and so fearful to acknowledge that they're still at war, and war's been declared or maintained on us, they'll be marching down the streets just like they were in Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898 with Gatling guns, gunning everybody down on the block. And, we'll never see it coming. We'll probably be in the house and somebody be in there playing a PS5 or some shit. We'll never see it coming.
So you're saying if you build it, you must protect it?
You must protect it first.
Mm.
But you have to have a code of conduct, and you have to have a culture of understanding that. And that's a warrior code that we've abdicated long ago. The only time we get tough is when we shoot at each other.
Hey, man, I don't need to say nothing else.
I do. January, what was it? The insurrection.
6th.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That proves everything PC just said. He's willing to burn this fucking country down.
Right. So,
all right, I'm done now.
I don't care what we trying to do. If it ain't codified, we ain't serious about doing it. Let's just put it like that. Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tom Jones, Patrick Irvin. Remember the link to check out PC show today. FetLifeStation.com is in the description, especially in my email list and my Patreon. The link's in there as well. So make sure y'all check out the brother, support the brother, and catch the next videos coming up, and keep supporting this thing. But let's stop playing around and put real plans in place to be real powerful people and get real respect. So we out this thing.